Okay, great. So then we can publish after the session. Okay, great. So thank you very much for joining. Good morning and good afternoon to all for joining this session convened by the Impact Working Group on the importation of medicines and medical equipment during disease outbreak. During a disease outbreak, as you know, humanitarian actors may need to import medicines and medical equipment due to potential difficulties of sourcing safe and cost-effective medicines and medical equipment in the affected country. However, due to strict procedures for the importation of medicines and medical equipment in every country, humanitarian operators may find importation challenges. The legal framework in many countries was designed from a commercial perspective, and most of the time it is not adapted to the humanitarian needs or context. Therefore, last year, you may remember that at the HNPW, Save the Children, as a member of the Impact Working Group, facilitated a session with the Global Health Cluster. It was then decided to create a sub-working group on this topic. Unfortunately, we were all very busy during the response to COVID and could not work extensively on this project. But now there is a lot of lessons learned and ongoing initiatives, and it is important today to look at them and identify the other initiatives so that we connect the dots and we do not reinvent the wheel. So today we have two panels with guest speakers. The first one is on global standards and barcodes, and we will look at how it can facilitate the importation of medicines and medical equipment, and also how customs administration can use them to speed up the customs clearance. The second panel will be about HS code, but let's start with the first panel. So the first panel, let me change the, so as I said, it is about barcodes, and we will start with IFRC and Mr. Ibrahim Bourki, who is going to address in a few minutes the challenges to import medicines and medical equipment. Ibrahim, over to you.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ibrahim Bourki, and I'm working with the IFRC as Senior Officer Purchasing for Health category. So as Virginie explained, like in today's topic, we all face different challenges while we're exporting or importing goods. So in terms of medical items, the challenges we face is actually a lot these days. So coming towards different points where what we are experiencing in different countries, as we are dealing with almost 192 countries, so we are actually sending these shipments globally. So in some of the countries we have auxiliary status, as well as IFRC has its own legal status. So we take advantage of that in sending goods. The challenge we face is, even though being auxiliary, we still face lots of different documentation requirements for different countries, and procedures vary, which is of course subject to countries' regulations. Then pre-clearance times we require, it varies from 2 days till 60 days. Then bunch of documentation which we have to submit, that also varies for different countries. The additional factor which we have to incorporate is, some countries are okay with submission of online documentation, like you can send the e-documents, e-waybills, or you can say air waybills via email are acceptable to them. However, there are still lots of countries who actually rely on a bunch of sets of documents which are printed in hard copy, originally posted, and then we get the import clearance. So on top of that, if we are dealing with cold chain items, then that makes life more difficult, because you have temperature control, and then government or regulatory bodies needs to issue you a special permit. And so overall, based using this platform, I would like to raise this point at what efforts we could do to harmonize these standards for all these countries for importation, where we can send similar bunch of documents. We have set a standard, or we come up with like harmonization process to make it less complex and less time consuming, to support the real cause, which is to support the beneficiaries and support the health clinics of different countries and different Red Crosses and different other organizations. So I think that pretty much sums it up from my side. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much, Ibrahim. It's good to have your views on this. We also have the views of René Mousse, the head of medical and nutrition supply chain of Save the Children. René, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Virginie. And good morning to you all. My name is René Mousse. I work for Save the Children as head of medical nutrition supply chain. So I'll just share some of the challenges that we are facing, and I think they are probably very similar and familiar to many of you, and also what Ibrahim just mentioned. I think we also have to realize the difference in context. There may be differences between regular ongoing activities and responding to an emergency. In regular ongoing activities and ongoing programs, it's usually the normal importation procedures and regulations will apply. So it's very important that your country office is very familiar with these procedures and have somebody designated to be an expert on that. But in emergencies, the regulations may be quite different depending on the type of emergency. In my experience, we see that in national disasters, the country authorities may be more flexible and cooperative during importation processes. Usually other ministry is a counterpart. So instead of the Ministry of Health in natural disasters, it's very often the Ministry of Social Welfare. So you need to know which ministry you're dealing with in the type of response you're working in. But in emergencies due to political instability, the rules and regulations may be much more challenging, and you might be experiencing non-cooperative authorities. So you need to know in what context you are working and which ministries you're dealing with. So some of the challenges that we face is that, well, it's important to know exactly the registration status that your organization has in the country. What type of MOU do you have and which with ministry? If you're registered, for example, as a medical NGO with the Ministry of Health, then or as a medical NGO, then it might be easier to import medicine. If you're registered as a non-medical NGO with another type of ministry, you might be it might be much more difficult. So you also, well, the knowing the importation procedures in your country. So can you import generic or non-registered pharmaceuticals? I mean, the situation over the last, well, 10 years has changed quite a bit, where in the past it was quite easy to import generic non-registered drugs. You will see that it's now becoming much more difficult. You really need to know what the restrictions are in your country. What are the restrictions on narcotics? You need special import licenses, export licenses to bring in narcotics. It can be quite a complicated process. Also, what are the restrictions on transportation of dangerous goods, the transportation methods, and what kind of documentations you need to be able to import dangerous goods? What are the regulations on import licenses, procedures, and tax exemptions? So you need to deal with the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Finance. So you need to have somebody in your organization that has some knowledge with that and knows how to deal with these different counterparts. Important to know that this with free gift certificates, that it's a non-commercial use. That's usually a donation to the Ministry of Health that will facilitate easier importation process. We've also seen in countries where you think you know the procedures, and then there is some change in the political climate, or that can cause sudden changes in importation procedures, a change of government or a change of context. Suddenly they start to be more bureaucratic. They start to ask for different type of documentation that is completely new and that will cause challenges in the importation process. So you need to be on top of that to make sure that you know all the most up-to-date processes. Very often we make use of custom clearance agents. That can be very useful because they usually also have the right contacts with the proper authorities, but you always have to make sure that you always have somebody in your own organization that is qualified, that knows the importation procedures, that you don't completely 100% rely on a custom clearance agent. You need to have somebody in your organization that is qualified as well, that knows how to deal with these different companies. It can, in some countries, they use or they actually do quality sample testing, where they, before you're allowed to import, they take samples of certain batches for quality testing, and you won't be able to release your goods before the tests have been checked and qualified. So know in which country, in which context that is happening. Ibrahim, you also mentioned temperature control. So with all the ambient, not only for cold chain, but also for ambient goods up to 25 to 30 degrees, in most countries where we are working, you need to control the temperature, making sure that you ship things in reefer containers or at least in a temperature controlled environment. And a very vulnerable part of the supply chain is actually the custom clearance process. So you need to assess the depot and the storage facilities in customs to make sure that they are able to keep your goods under the right temperature, not only for cold chain, but also for ambient. For cold chain, very often there are fast track procedures. So know what those procedures are. So as soon as a cold chain shipment comes in, you're able to take those goods out and put them in your own cold chain facilities, and then do the clearance process later. So you need to know what are the procedures to do that. Otherwise, you risk damaging and wasting your cold chain products. And last but not least, understanding Incoterms. Who is responsible for what? There are all the different I'm not going to mention them all, but yeah, it's important to know who is responsible for the importation procedures, for the transportation and delivery to the final destination. But please understand that also when everything is sort of, when you have Incoterms up to final delivery to destination, the importation procedure is still under the responsibility of the organization itself. The suppliers will not be able to do everything or responsible for the complete importation procedures. So you need to make sure that you have all the right documentation, the import license, the tax exemptions, and all the clearance documents for the supplier or the transport provider to be able to do all the importation on your behalf. So I think these are the main challenges that we are facing with shipping and importation of medical materials. Thank you.
Thank you very much, René. It's been a very comprehensive, and I'm sure that most of the challenges that you have just mentioned are familiar to those that are participating to the session today. Just a quick point on what you have mentioned about the Incoterms. We have just launched an e-learning course to introduce all these aspects on importation and custom clearance. So and we address also in the course the Incoterms and other elements. So you are more than welcome to look at that. It will be available to all early September. We are in a testing phase. But let's come back to our challenges and to the potential solutions to speed up the importation of goods. And we have the honor today to have GS1 and Sophie Moll, who is the Senior Manager Healthcare in GS1. And I would like to ask how global standards can be useful and support the importation of goods. Sophie, over to you.
Thank you, Virginie, and thank you for having me, us. I'm here together with my colleague Geraldine Lissat-Bonnet, who will take the floor in the next couple of minutes together with me. We are really happy to be together with you with this impact group. The humanitarian partnership and network week is something that we are looking into. My other colleague, Rosalie Clemens, is with us today as well. She kind of started all the work there, and we, together with Geraldine, as we are focused in healthcare, are taking over the participation of this working group. So thank you very much for having us here, and hello to everyone. So maybe to start, because I'm not sure if you all know what GS1 stands for and who we are. So in order to keep you engaged, I've created a quick polls. So I'm launching the 2 polls, and if you would like to be so kind to participate to that. So the first question is, what does GS1 stand for? And so this will be Global Supply Chain 1, Global Service 1, Global Specification 1, or Global Standards 1. And the second question would be if you know what we are doing. So are we a solution provider? Are we a sectoral association? Are we a global standard development organization, or are we a donor organization? And I get to let you vote. I still see that moving. It's just to see if everyone is here and awake with a cup of coffee. Just like to, yeah, that's something that we would have done face to face, but as we are all working remote there now, I found it's a nice way to break the ice. So, okay, I will end the poll now. And I'm happy that I've asked this question. We have 75% for the global standards 1. And yes, this is what GS1 stands for. And 75% for a global standard development organization. And indeed, this is the correct question. So I'm not surprised to have some people who think that we are a solution provider. This is still the case in some countries, and the knowledge and the awareness about what we're doing is not there yet. So happy to have the possibility, and I will share the results with you, sorry. Happy to have the possibility to explain you a little bit more what would be the role, what could be the role of GS1 in the importation of goods today. So thank you for participating. I will share my screen now, and I hope you would be able to see that properly. Okay, so as mentioned, GS1 is a global neutral non-for-profit standard development organization. We are an NGO to the UN. While nowadays barcodes are really everywhere in our daily life, it's not that far away that the first barcoded product has been scanned. That was back in 1974, and that was a chewing gum packet. And that's explains a little bit how, yeah, this is not that far. This is really pretty recent. Some efforts have been done since then, but I think that explains why the global standards are not that known today. We are developing standards. We do not do that on our own. In our kitchen, we are really driven by the industries, according to industry needs. We are developing things. And we have a strong engagement as well with governments all around the world. GS1 is not active only in healthcare. Geraldine and I are working at the global office in Brussels. Rosalie is working in the global office in the headquarters in Princeton. But we are active in several other sectors: retail, food, technical industries, transports and logistics. So that makes us really cross-industry. And if today our topic is more about medicine and medical equipment, our standards are really valid for all other possible sectors. As I mentioned, we are in both, the three of us are working at the global headquarters. We do not our work alone. We have a global coverage, and we have 115 member organizations which are working with us, providing the manufacturers with the company prefix or with their global trade identification number for their products. And I will come back to that later. When I say scan, this means bips. Here you have some figures of 6 billion bips that we are counting per year. We are users driven. This means that you see the figure here. We have more than 1,300,000 users worldwide, and we have a global coverage. So this is really a global organization and a lot of staff members to support that too. And this is a very busy slide, and you see all of these acronyms, and don't worry, I won't go in each of them, but this is just to give you the picture of what we are talking about and how GS1 can really support the work that Impact is doing, and the importation of goods in general. GS1 standards are creating a common foundation for business, and that will be by uniquely identifying, and that will be the blue part on this slide, by accurately capturing, and that will be really the pink part of this slide, and automatically sharing information about product, location, assets, and services, for instance. So if we go back to the GS1 standards for identification, the blue part here, you see that there are several acronyms here, and that stands for instance, a global location number, which will be able to identify location, manufacturer site, for instance. You see the GTIN, which is the global trade identification number, which will be able to uniquely identify a product. Some stuff that can be of interest for us here in the context of customs borders are the serial shipping container code, so the SSCC, valid for the unique identification of containers, as well as the global returnable asset identifier. If you split the containers, and if some pallets are going in one direction, some others are returned to the shipper or stuff like that. So if you put your shoes in a customs officer in the front line, for instance, receiving all those containers, thanks to these standards, to the SSCC, he would be able to scan this code and be able to get access to the list of all the items in there, because he will have access to all the global trade identification number inside the container. So that will accelerate, of course, all the process, and that will give the possibility to the customs officer to have the accurate information in one place. Of course, that can be matched with the shipping documentation that goes with the shipment of containers, and to hold together with that and with the standards for identification, will be able to deliver or to proceed the risk assessment in order to fight against illicit trade and counterfeiting. That's something that can help as well the customs officers. So here is the role of the blue part, let's say the blue standards here in the importation of goods, for instance. Once the customs officer has scanned, for instance, an SSCC, he will get access to products inside the container or inside the pallets, for instance, if he wants to move forward with the control, let's say, and he will be able to get access to other barcodes, which are still in here in the pink part. That could be GS1 data matrix that you see on the pharmaceutical packaging. This is barcode that we're using most likely because of the regulation. In there, you get other information, other attributes that we're calling them. You will get the global trade identification number, you will get the lot number, the serial number, and the expiry date, for instance. So with one, let's say, barcode, you will be able to get access to a bunch of information, which gives, again, efficiency and security to what is going on in this specific container and what's going on the supply chain. That would be valid. I mean, this data matrix will be valid for pharmaceutical. You will get other linear barcode for, instance, medical device. This comes, of course, this is depending on the country and on the process of the company, basically. The last piece here on this slide is the green part, the share, and this is not, this is the final step, but this is really an important one. That's where you will be able to exchange the information scanned. You see here an example of GS1 standards again, the Global Data Synchronization Network, GDSN, another acronym, and I'm sorry for that. Our world is full of acronyms. And here we'll be able to really see the movement on the supply chain, where is the good, where the movement of it, and be able to share the information with other stakeholders in the supply chain. So of course, at the end, the supply chain remains very efficient and reliable because of all these steps followed. Why the tracking of the healthcare products can be valuable and interesting to put in place. This would be really, as I said, to help to decrease counterfeits and the diversion of products. That will increase, as I said as well, that will increase, sorry, the supply chain efficiency and ultimately patient safety. The compliance with regulation, you know, as well as me, that this is very important in the healthcare sector. If we can maybe just, before you going to the next panelists, Virginie, spending 2 minutes in watching this video. This is really an illustration and testimonials of some actors in the humanitarian aid in the developing world that could be of interest for this group. So it's just a 1 minute and something video. I think it might be relevant to the group to see the role of GS1 there. So I hope I launch that and you can see and hear the video.
We don't see the video. You only see your PowerPoint presentation.
Necessary in the developing world.
Sorry, you don't see the video?
No, we only see your PowerPoint presentation and the first page.
Okay, so let me stop that. Maybe I will need to do something else. Give me 1 second. Sorry for that. I'm still not a Zoom expert, I think, unfortunately. I think you will be able to see that now.
Yes, okay.
Barcoding, absolutely necessary in the developing world. In terms of accuracy, efficiency, data visibility, and data security. What we saw was that there was 100% of accuracy in the data that was being captured. Ultimately, it was because you were scanning a barcode and not manually writing in numbers and expiration dates and so on and so forth. And then efficiency was another big one. We found that there was a 68% savings on time that it took versus manually entering data. So for each transaction manually, it took 1 minute. With the barcode, it took 18 seconds. For this to really become successful from country to region to global, it's partnership.
I think I'm optimistic that in not too many years, we will be able to have be able to use commodity standards and barcodes and have so much more economic efficiency on our response, but also be more timely and save lives.
There are a lot of challenges. It will take the work of many, but I think in the end, the values are tremendous.
Thank you, Virginie. That was it for my part now. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sophie, for this very interesting presentation. People are already asking for a copy of your slides, so it's good. So now it's a good initiative, but let's have the opinion of a customs officer. We have online Konstantin Chuta, who is a senior customs officer at UNCTAD, and can you explain how or can customs administrations use barcodes to speed up the importation of goods? If yes, how? Over to you, Kosti.
Thank you, Virginie, and good morning to you all. Definitely, barcodes are currently used in various processes related to importation of goods. As for example, for the automatic data capturing by importers or their representatives, barcodes are being used for the identification of relief items, and in particular for customs officers for the verification process. Depending on the context, the barcode may indicate the manufacturer, the country of origin, the expiry date, the brand, and the intended market. All those elements which can help a customs officer in verifying that the goods fulfill all the requirements. So they are for the intended market, they are not expired. They can check the brand, if the particular pharmaceutical product or medicine is authorized to be imported in the country. And also more than that, it can help customs in fighting against counterfeit medicines. In addition to this, the barcodes enable an efficient inventory management. This is from the warehouse keeper, I would say, but from the customs officer, it enables the inventory control. So it will speed up all those process, taking into account that the barcode can be applied from the pallet down to the lowest transactional unit level, to the lowest packaging part. In terms of event data, barcodes are used for the event data exchange, enabling customs to track and trace consignments and ensure end-to-end visibility. So relief items can be checked if they are imported by eligible actors, and if the channel of distribution is followed as authorized within the process. I haven't mentioned here the barcodes, which are also being used on various documents, facilitating the payment process, the verification of mandatory supporting documents, the licenses, permits, certificates, authorizations, which are issued in relation with the importation of relief items. Thank you, Virginie, back to you.
Thank you, Kosti. Thank you very much. We have a question in the chat for you, Kosti, or for Sophie. What are the countries whose customs are currently equipped with the barcode reading capacity? Who can take this question?
I can take at least
Thank you.
part of it. There are a long list of countries which are currently using barcode readers, either to automatically process document or to check, to verify and validate the supporting document, or to be used in the verification or control process of customs authorities. I don't know, I can prepare eventually a list of countries that I know that are using barcode readers in order to speed up the importation process, and share it with the participants. Thank you.
Thank you. Sophie, anything you want to add before I give the floor to Geraldine?
Yeah, I think Eloise made a good point here. This and that's what that's where the title of this panel was made to. We know that in some countries the access to those barcode readers is difficult. That's why we are looking into apps as well that could be installed in the mobile phone, for instance. Mobile phones will be more available in some countries too. So I'm happy to see that COSTI do have some list of countries which are equipped. I think this is really a need in developing countries for sure to be re-equipped by these barcode readers in order to spare time, be more efficient, avoid the manual writing and everything. So this needs to be encouraged and this needs to be expanded, let's say.
One more remark, maybe, Virginie. I believe it's not a question of equipping customs administrations with those devices, because today the devices are not very expensive. It's more providing them with the capability to use those devices. So the customs information system being able to use these devices in the automation of their internal processes. It's more related to the processes and capabilities of the IT systems than the availability of the device itself.
Okay, thank you. Another question, what can be done to reduce the customs clearance process, especially during a pandemic outbreak like situation? This is all the challenges that we are looking into with the impact working group, and we are addressing that. We have other session this week that can answer the questions. Another question from René, who is providing the barcodes when we are procuring from different suppliers and consolidate cargo in one shipment? Sophie? Unmute, we don't hear you.
Canijo. En fin, entonces ando como acelerada. Yo creo que por sí.
Pero ten cuidado. ¿Tienes abierto? Can you please mute, please? We hear you. Sophie, over to you.
Yes, maybe I will give the floor to Geraldine, so that because this is really linked to what she will present.
Okay, good. So yes, indeed. So the question to Geraldine as well that we have, and perhaps she can compile an answer in those is there a need for global harmonization and operable solutions? So over to you, Geraldine. Geraldine is the Director of Public Policy in GS1. Over to you, Geraldine.
Thank you very much, Virginie, and good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I don't know where you're located across the world. So indeed, there is a need for harmonization in regards to pharmaceuticals and medical device and all the other healthcare products that are needed today across the world. And in healthcare, everything is very much driven by regulation. So I'm the Director for Public Policy, and that's what I know. And here, really, this is one of the three parts of where GS1 can help in regards to the work that you are trying to do with impact, meaning that we talked already about the border procedure and how GS1 can really help to move your goods efficiently and safely from one point to another, how we can also support in regards to customs clearance. We are also very much used in regards to warehouse management and inventory management. And here, the last point, which is the traceability of your product, is addressed mainly through regulation. And if we go to next slide, you have no choice actually today in the world of pharmaceuticals, but it's becoming the same when you talk about medical device. Most of the system related to traceability of pharmaceuticals across the world are based on the GS1 system. And you see here in green, the countries where the GS1 system is fully onboarded. When I say that, I refer mainly to the identification of the product, as well as the marking of the product with a barcode. And this is mainly targeting the little box of pharmaceuticals. But in some countries, we also start to see requirement to include that data with the information related to the bigger box and also shipment, what we call aggregation, in order to make sure that not only the drug when it's supplied to the patient is safe and verified, but also beforehand, all the process to ship the product and to display the product across one country is automated and safe. You see Italy in orange, and just a parenthesis. So Italy has until 2025 to move from their current system to the system that has been adopted for Europe in order to fight against falsified medicines. And so in a few years, Italy will be green as well. If we move to next slide, this is the use of the data matrix for pharmaceuticals. So that one is very much used for the box themselves, so the secondary packaging, because they take less space. And that's also the level where the serialization is starting. Serialization being the process to enabling you to really identify each pack of a medicine, and also being the prerequisite for you to be able to aggregate the data from one packaging level to the other one, meaning that ultimately, if you are at the customs and you scan the big barcode on your shipment, you are able to retrieve the information of what is in this shipment instead of having to open it and each time scan every case and then open every case and scan every box and so on and so on. So that gives you an idea of the outreach today. And if we go to next slide, as we are not able to travel, I thought I would give you some flavor of traveling, and we go across the world. This is again the map with this time little pin on every country where you have requirements in place for medical device identification. And again, I know this is not so important because most of these requirements are related to the traceability of the device or the the pharmaceuticals when they are dispensed to the patient, and you are working much more upstream. However, this is a basis to ensure that the products are identified, and so it enables you to build up your system leveraging this first level of identification. And if we go to next slide, WHO very recently released a paper where you see actually these different layers of building up a traceability system. Ultimately, you could envision having it also applied for customs. And this document is quite easy to understand, which is not always the case for WHO papers. It's also not 800 document, it's much more shorter, and you have visuals, etc. And I really invite you to go and have a look, because for education purposes, it's much better than anything I could tell you in regards to the use of standards, but also in regards to normal good practices for medicine traceability. It's also covering medical device as part of an annex. So in all the map I show you, you could see that Africa was quite empty. And we know that this is really one of the biggest challenge for Africa to get traceability of, here we're targeting pharmaceuticals, but of goods in general. And so we have managed, together with other organizations, and you see the little logo on the slide here, even if they are small, but you have the link, to have around 25 countries signing a call to action. And part of this call to action includes the need to really work together and develop synergies to improve the traceability and the visibility of the product across Africa. And this, of course, includes also working with customs. This, of course, also includes all the humanitarian work that is currently going on. And you see among the little logo that you have the Global Fund, you have USAID, we had UNFPA, we had many others, which were part of this meeting and said, yes, we will work together because that's the only way to make it efficient and concrete outcomes. So in a nutshell, what is the idea? The idea is that you would uniquely and globally identify your product or your shipping containers or whatever you use, and depending on the level where you stand in the supply chain, using identifiers such as the GS1 identifiers, or at least globally unique identifiers. these identifiers, and I'm going back to the idea of a nomenclature which was developed, which was mentioned earlier, could be also mapped with a nomenclature, meaning if I want to identify pens, I can say, okay, this is my nomenclature code for the pens. But in order to be able to distinguish different pens, I will use different type of unique identifiers. So I know that that pen will end up in that shipment and that one will end up in that other shipment, and both of them will go to different places. The nomenclature code will be the same. So I will be able to map this unique identifier with the nomenclature code. So ultimately, when I receive it, even if I don't speak the same language, I will, or if I'm not an expert on syringes and type of syringe, I will be able to know this is exactly that one because the nomenclature code is that one. And thanks to the globally unique code that I would have applied on it, I know it's exactly the one that was meant to be put in the shipment and the one that is effectively received when I open my shipment. So that's an example. The fact that you apply a barcode in order to capture this globally unique identifier, and it was mentioned in the recording that Sophie shared, enable you to gain efficiency because you just scan and you get the information out. And last but not least, the fact that you are able to send the information before with and after with all the different partners among one supply chain enable you to also ensure that you are efficient, but also that the information is correct. And the data integrity here is key. So when you arrive at the point of clearance, you just scan your shipment, you know what is in, you see all the list of what has been put in the shipment, and you are able to also correctly put things in your warehouse. You're also able to manage your inventory, but also able to redirect the different goods when they are needed, or to compile them into different kits for specific use. So this is really concrete applications of how the GS1 system can work, and it's compatible with the UNCTAD, sorry, it's difficult to pronounce with a French accent, your automated system for customs data, meaning that if you use that system and if you use the GS1 system, it will match and you will have a reference, a cross-references, referencing between both data. So that's very quickly and very high level, an overview of where really the GS1 system could play a role in the different part of the humanitarian supply chain, and also key when we talk about emergency, having efficiency, but also something that is quite simple to handle. And if we move to next slide, I think I'm done. I am. Just a question, so how can we support? That's a question for you. And Sophie, please take over if needed.
Thank you, Geraldine. I think you developed that part already in your explanation. So where we can really support is border procedures, warehouse management, product traceability. Because I know that we have one panelist, Valeria, with us from the WCO, and I'm previously worked at the WCO on a project which was called IPM, Interface Public Members. GS1 has a long-term, as an history of partnership with the WCO, and that can be moved forward, of course. So that's an angle that we can take to support your work. This IPM, not sure if you heard about, but already had the idea to scan a GTIN, so a GTIN on the product, in order to extract the information and to be able to reach out the brand owners. And that was made in the fight against counterfeiting really angle that the WCO took, really not only on the taxes and excise and getting customs to do that job, but really to help the customs officers on the front line to be provided with information where they can identify at least not the fake products, but help them with the suspicion on the potential counterfeited products. So that project has been unfortunately abandoned in 2015, but that was already a good example, a good case study of what could be done between, if you link the WCO system that are developed, so and that the customs officer are working with, so ASICUDA or others, with our database in the GS1 GTIN, for instance, and we can retrieve correct information. And the scanning, of course, is easy. Yes, I know that this is an ongoing work at the WCO, that you would really like to have smart borders, but Valeria would certainly talk about that later. And we are supporting this together with, you know, the industry, the government. We are facilitating that, and we can really help. So that's another angle that we can take, and that where we can support the work of your group. That has been tackled by Geraldine. Of course, future actions, and that's an example, and that will be food for thought for the next session, but raising awareness, this is what we are doing now. This is really trying to get align, coordinate with all the current initiatives where we can connect the dots and get to an harmonized solution. Maybe I think that the actors are talking to each other. That's what we're trying to do as well with GS1 Healthcare. Talking to each other first, and then the same language secondly. Training, education, back to what Kosti was saying, this is true that yeah, you need to have a scanner, you need to have the capabilities of the scanner, so you need maybe to read, sorry, the barcodes, so you need maybe to work with a solution provider which can really help you to have the scanner capable of reading such and such barcodes, but as well training people how to use the scanners and where to scan and what to scan, basically. Yeah, we mentioned, of course, supply chain efficiency, integrity in what we were saying, helping in the fighting counterfeiting, diversion of goods. What we can do as well, again, example, really connecting you with regulatory authorities and other intergovernmental organizations we're working with. For instance, facilitating a working group or within this impact project with dedicated and concrete topics and concrete projects that we could do and that we could that might help the whole process. So a mapping of countries where the SSCC is used or not, a mapping of suppliers that are using GS1 or not in different countries as well, could be some example that we can leverage and help you with. Geraldine, anything to add?
Nothing. Thank you, Sophie.
Yeah, thank you. Conscious of the time, I hope I was not too long, and I give the floor back to you, Virginie, sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was very, very interesting and very comprehensive. We will continue working on this in the future, and we will reconvene a meeting of the sub-working group with those that are interested in a couple of weeks, so that we can discuss further how to take this forward. Thank you very much. So now let's go to the second panel. You may remember that at the HNPW last year, a discussion paper was shared about HS code. And this paper included several options on how the HS code can be used to speed up the importation of aid. During the response to COVID-19, WCO, the World Customs Organization, published a list of HS code, and the Impact Working Group shared it widely to the humanitarian community. But let's see, and let's give the floor to Mrs. Viera Filipova, who is a technical officer in the World Customs Organization, on how the list of HS code was creating during the COVID-19. Viera, over to you.
Thank you very much, Virginie, and good day to everybody. If we can have on screen the slide with the 4 lists that we created. And I'm posting in the chat the links to those lists.
Can you see it now?
I don't know.
You're not seeing on your screen. Okay, so let me try this one. What do you see now? Do you see
I
it?
see your screen. Yes, now it's okay.
Okay, good.
Thank you. So in the response to the pandemic, the World Customs organization developed a total number of 4 lists of HS classification references. The first HS classification reference for COVID-19 medical supplies was published by the WCO on the 20th of March last year as an initial response to the Secretariat to help countries in their fight against the spread of COVID-19. The initial list contained the classification of needed essential products such as COVID-19 diagnostic test kits and masks, certain personal protective equipment, and medical devices such as ventilators and ECMO, as well as consumables and disinfectant products that may be used for the prevention and treatment of the disease. The second edition of this first list was issued roughly 2 weeks later on the 9th of April 2020, and it expanded the initial list to cover a greater range of medical equipment and supplies that are required as critical items by health authorities, such as oxygen concentrators and sample collection sets. The second version of this first list was developed in close cooperation with the World Health Organization. Since then, the list underwent a couple of other updates, and the latest version is version 3.01 of the 2nd of June 2020, and it is available in 6 languages. This latest version, what is new about it, is that it contains links to lists by WCO members. So this is the classification at the national level. This list was provided as an indicative list with a view to facilitating the classification of COVID-19 medical supplies at the international level. This is 6 digits as per the harmonized system. And the harmonized system is the international language for describing goods for customs purposes, but not only for customs purposes. Having these 6 digits at the international level, economic operators were advised to consult with the relevant customs administrations in relation to the classification at the domestic level, which means 7 or more digits, or in the event of any discrepancy between the practices and the WCO list, again to consult the National Customs Administration. The list of HS coded medical supplies was widely appreciated by stakeholders and taken into consideration by governments when preparing their responses to secure and facilitate trade in these supplies. It serves and still serves as the basis for identifying the cross-border movement of the products needed during the pandemic, for applying contingent tariff and non-tariff relief policies, for monitoring and combating falsified supplies, and even for taking responsive actions to address shortages. While issues of harmonization of classification practice are examined by the WCO Harmonized System Committee for international decision, and this is done at the request of members, the Secretariat looked at offering practical assistance. So these lists do not have legal effect because they have not undergone the official process. Differences in classification were clearly indicated during the evaluation of the goods for inclusion. They are included in the list. Again, economic operators are advised to consult national customs administrations for the classification at national level. On the 30th of April, we released the second list, again as a joint effort between the WCO and WHO, which is a list of priority medicines. This list contains the suggested harmonized system codes for medicines used in the general medical care administered to hospitalized patients as part of the different treatment of the COVID-19 disease. And for these medicines, interrupted supply could result in serious health consequences. The medicines and active substances were compiled by the World Health Organization, taking into account various information published by national health authorities, scientific societies, or pharmaceutical experts. And the suggested HS codes were provided by the WCO Secretariat. The third list, or the in list 124, in that regard, it should be noted that the COVID-19 pandemic increased research in new substances that could be helpful in either immunization or the direct treatment against the disease. On 21st of August last year, the WHO convened a special meeting in view of the pressing need to give some new drug substances a name to be used and recognized worldwide in the hope that these substances will help in the pandemic. As a result, the WHO published in October 2020 a new proposed in list 124 special edition for COVID-19, containing 25 substances pertinent to the COVID-19 pandemic. If progress on the treatment of COVID-19 is achieved with any of these substances, it would be expected that the movement of the relevant substance will increase across borders, and therefore their advanced classification in the harmonized system will indeed facilitate trade. Given that, we ran the list through the WCO scientific subcommittee and issued the HS codes for these 25 substances. The last list is the HS classification reference for vaccines and related supplies and equipment, which was again developed in close cooperation with the World Health Organization and in line with the December 2020 resolution of the WCO Council on the role of customs in facilitating the cross-border movement of situationally critical medicines and vaccines. This last list was issued on the 29th of January and is again available in 6 or 7 languages. Thank you, Virginie. I'm available for any questions. You're on mute.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Viaja, for this presentation. I don't see the chat anymore, but I don't know whether there are questions. Otherwise, we can give the floor to the second panelist on that, which is Mrs. Boura Suleiman from the International Humanitarian City. And she's director at interim of the operations department. How do IHC partners use the HS code? Over to you, Buran.
Thank you, Virginie, and thanks to everyone. First of all, I would like just to give a quick introduction of IHC and explain a little bit on the members, and then I will take you through the process of the usage of HS codes for IHC members and here in Dubai. The IHC is basically a platform where all the UN organizations, NGOs, and some of the commercial members working with the humanitarian agencies work together and collaborate together. It's funded by the Dubai government, facilitating all the work, not only in terms of logistics, capacity development, and also partnership and funding. This is very briefly, it's a designated free zone, and that basically will lead me to explain about the how easy, let's say, and the facilitation provided for the IHC members in terms of logistics movement. As you know, of course, if you are operating in a local background or in a local place compared to the designated free zone, you have a lot of benefits in terms of avoiding, or let's say being exempted from duties, from taxes, and also for the approvals. So talking about the medical items, if you are operating in a designated free zone, what will happen is that you will not need to go for the approval of MOH for most or the majority of the items, or take those approvals in advance. So this is translated in terms of time frame. You will receive your shipment probably in the morning at Dubai airport, and in 1 hour, 2 hours, you will receive it at your warehouse here, and vice versa. Still, during COVID, as all the other governments in the world, we could see that restrictions has been imposed on COVID-related items, and the same was done here. It impacted more maybe some of the companies and some of the local entities, but it did not impact the IHC. Mainly because the government is taking notice that this is an international humanitarian response depot, as well as there is a system that has been streamlined. So the customs system will still stop us for those items at a certain time. They were permitted, like the masks, like the aprons, the gloves, etc. The customs system will never block you using those HS codes, but at time of COVID, those restrictions were embedded on the system. What we managed to do is, under the customs clearance code for our members here, be it WHO, be it some of the NGOs, be it IFRC, etc., the system will recognize that those entities are exempted, and then their customs clearance declaration will proceed. This is just a quick background on what was happening and what is IHC is basically providing in terms of facilitation. We work very closely with customs, and they are the main success actually for IHC being able to provide a clear and authenticated HS code list, including medical items, since 2017 till now. We have done a mapping process for more than 5,400 line items used by the humanitarian community. Let me just give you a quick background, how it started, what has been done, and probably we'll touch on the challenges. So basically, we have done the work pre-hand, and this is why it went smoothly. And if I want to rely, or how should I say, if I want to say what you need probably to think of is look at your current process, look at your data, look at your stocks in the system, and clean everything beforehand. Then later on, things will be easier. I'll start probably vice versa. I'll tell you one of the examples that we used to face here, even after we have done the process. A lot of items came into the country with the wrong HS code. After we did the exercise and things were rectified, in order to ship it out, then you will have a real problem that those items came under a different name, let's say, or description, and they are going under another. So we had to work again with customs, and we had to get sort of undertaking or exemptions until we cleared all those certified or cleared items coming into the country. I'll give you an example. For example, the tubes, the lab tubes, one of them, I remember the HS code which was used was for blood samples. So how would you basically, import or export an item that you have completely used the wrong HS code? Of course, the system will block you. This issue is not the system itself. As the colleagues has mentioned before in the first panel, there's a barcode. So when the system will read the barcode and the list of your items, it will show, for example, this HS code. And for them, it's blood samples. Of course, they will stop your shipment. In reality, it was only glass tubes for the lab, for the laboratories. So the work needs to be done before in terms of making sure that your documents are right, your HS code is correct, your declaration and your description of the items is done beforehand. So when you receive or when you import, probably you will have more time before export, because export you are basically responding to an emergency. So again, I will emphasize the importance of focusing on the import process or the import step. So what we have done in 2017, September 2017, we have basically looked at all the stock items inside IHC, be it for WHO, for UNICEF, for WFP, UNHRD, all IFRC, all the members that are keeping stocks here. The items basically were clean. We could see, for example, the same item with, I will take an example, it's maybe not a medical item, let's say the wick hose. Sometimes it's described as OB wick, sometimes described as tents, sometimes described as steel frames, sometimes as temporary warehouses. And all of them have different HS codes. So how you would basically have control over what you are having or what you are importing. The work has been done over 4 to 6 months in coordination with customs, where we have went through each and single item, mainly the most common items and the existing one in IHC. After that, the list, after being cleaned, been shared with our members and has been basically reflected in the customs systems for IHC members. And a control has been done on this list to be sort of a drop-down list where you will pick up the item. Some of you will say now, if you are putting it as a drop-line item, you are giving me limitation on how I will import or export an item which is not on that list, because you are only having a 4,700 line item at that time. Absolutely correct. We also developed a mechanism with our members and with customs. As soon as a shipment is coming, before even it arrives Dubai, the minute your shipment is confirmed or your PO is issued, and you are receiving an invoice or a packing list from your supplier, we are getting an inquiry from our members saying, okay, we are trying to get those items and they are not in your list. What we will do is we will verify those items. Sometimes we ask for pictures to make sure that we are entering the right item, and if we are not duplicating it, we will go back to customs with a specific form and it will be included in the list. So it's ready before you bring it in the country. The process I'm talking about, you're talking about almost 30 minutes of verification in IHC, of course, if you are able to give us all the information that we need, and between 5 to 10 minutes with customs. So there is no implication basically on your operations in terms of import or export. Of course, we have noticed during COVID in 2020 in particular, around 350 line items, new items that has been added to the humanitarian stocks here. Items that were not here before, example, the oxygen concentrators. I think some of the items related to the hospitals fit outs, a lot of medical items, pharmaceutical items that they were not there, also they were entered. So the factor, the main success factor, I would say, in using the HS code is to make sure you are using the right one. Also, I think our colleague Renee in the first panel mentioned something very important, and we have lived this in several occasions. The use of your clearing agent. First of all, it's important to be involved with the clearing agent and not to leave everything to them. No matter how professional they are, or let's say educated and they know their business, you know better. We had a lot of cases where the clearing agent or the member basically, let's say, for example, UNHRD will call and they will say, we have a problem with shipment is stuck at the customs and we cannot clear it because this item is not there, or it's not reflected properly, or it needs further approvals. In reality, we used to go back and check those items. It will be the clearing agent is not able either to use the system properly, did not provide the required documents or upload them correctly on the system. So sometimes you are led into more work or an assumption that you need to, how should I say, you are hindered by the clearing process, but not because it is the clearance process, it's because of the people behind it and the work that's done behind it. So pay some attention or give some more time, please, for the administrative work that's done by the clearing agents, and I'm sure many things can be solved easily. What else I wanted to touch on this one? I think it was basically the challenges that we was mentioned. So I was mentioning Either you have duplicate items, you have wrong HS code mentioned for the wrong item, and mainly the experienced clearing agent. And no doubt, of course, I'm talking here from the upstream level, which is much easier for the people who are in the field dealing with downstream. Having a smart government, having things, let's say more accessible. It's not like being on the field, but at least for the regional offices or maybe the main hubs, they can still do a lot to help the team in the field in order to have an easier process. The other thing, the IHC is working very closely with the other humanitarian hub in order to share this list and in order to have more unified process, let's say, that can help you later on. So for example, if you are moving your items from Unit Charity Dubai to Unit Charity Panama, you will have the same HS code list that has been used, linked directly on the same system. So you will avoid also a lot of hassle and time constraints. I think this is mainly and briefly what I have on the HS code and the work that has been done. So I will leave it to you, please, if you have any questions and would like me to add more information. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Buran. It's very interesting. We will open the floor for questions and debate as per our timeline in 7 minutes. But before, I would like to give the floor to Konstantin Schuta to tell us if he has anything to add on how the HS code are integrated into the IT systems used by customs administration. Kosti, over to you.
Thank you, Virginie. Just for the sake of time, I will try to be brief on this. So HS codes are used by different components of the customs information system, such as the integrated tariff, the risk management, the customs declaration processing system. Mainly for enabling customs administrations and partner competent authorities to quickly identify the goods needed to combat the effects of the pandemic. And to enable competent authorities to indicate applicable tariff and non-tariff measures, if any, so the import licensing requirements or any related conditions. Enabling also customs administration to have full control over the import duty waivers, which would be applicable only on priority medicines and essential supply. HS codes are used also for fast tracking the customs clearance of essential supplies, coordinating controls and intervention by customs and any other border agency, and very important, providing the government and relevant organization with an accurate overview of the quantity of goods already imported or the quantity of goods which are incoming and still on their way to the affected country. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not sure whether the last speaker is online. I don't see him on the list. Lance, are you with us? No, I don't think so. I don't see his name in the list of participants. So I would like to thank very much all the panelists and the speakers for the presentations and a comprehensive explanation of the different projects that are ongoing and initiatives that are implemented. I would like now to open the floor and to have a debate with all the participants. And we have based on our planning, we have about 30 minutes. I will hand over the floor to Suzanne Hodson from Save the Children. Suzanne, over to you.
Thanks, Virginie. I know we don't have a lot of time left for the debate, but let's make the best use of the time that we do have. So the first question I'd like to pose to everybody, what are the other existing initiatives that should be part of this project? Is there anything we've missed? Is there anything that stands out to people on this call that we should be looking at in more closer detail. So first question, please feel free to come off mute, or please feel free to type in the chat box, whichever you feel more comfortable with. I'll give you a couple of minutes.
Thank
to
you.
just
So
think
I've
that
heard
one
recently
through.
that Homelog is part of a group and a project called Hero. Do you want to elaborate on this?
Was that to me, Virginie?
No, it is to Homelog. And
Yeah. Do we have Homelog?
Yes,
Yep,
they're online.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, there were a few things that I found the session absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much for everybody, especially like all the technical solutions, all the harmonization efforts and so forth. I think it's fantastic to see those. There are some things that stick out to us, and this is basically mostly due to a particular project that we look at, where we look at medical supply chain disruptions in the COVID-19 pandemic. And those are the following. One is about the changing requirements of many different countries. I mean, we found in our project when we now collected data, first on PPE, but now also about vaccine distribution as well, that one of the biggest issues that most organizations struggle with is how often countries change their customs regulations and requirements and forms and import regulations and export regulations just because of the pandemic. And it's partly because of their own hoarding and their own panicking and panic buying and things like that. But those are issues to maybe look a little bit more into to make sure that those kinds of things don't happen. I think there are lots of other things that that come to mind. I thought it was particularly interesting to hear about when René mentioned that very often cold chains would be having a fast track for customs and import. I think that's very little known, and it's probably really good to look into that a lot more, because what we also found in the project is that customs is very often one of what we call a sticky point or a breaking point for cold chains. So, and temperature control in general. So if that has a fast track somewhere, that would be really important to kind of maybe also like, I saw in the chat very many people wanting to know like, okay, where exactly and which ones and things like that. So maybe just to go down the route a little bit more from that perspective. I don't want to keep you up too much more. We do have a full project on it. I will put you some of the things into the chat, like where to find things.
That'd be great. If you could put the link in there and we can share it later, that would be perfect. Thank you. So just keeping for time here. So I'll come back to recommendations, but we would also like, that was saying we, the impact group, would also like to know if anybody on this call is interested in continuing these discussions as part of a sub-working group on importation, medicals and medical equipment. If you are interested and would like to be part of this, then could I ask that you send Virginie an email and let us know your details, and we can reach out to you, because we would like to encourage more people to join in the communications. And then my last point is just an open floor again, is what are your recommendations on the next steps? Clearly, as a group, we've considered what the next steps should be, but we'd really like to hear from this group if they, what their thoughts are on what they feel our next steps should be. If I could open the floor there. Again, please put your hand up or come off mute.
René asked the floor as he's raised his hand.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, René.
I think, I mean, the whole session on HS codes and barcodes, I think it's very interesting. To be honest, I don't have a lot of experience with that. So I'd really like to see a bit more information how that is used in practical terms. I had one question earlier in the chat about how does that actually work when you're buying from different suppliers and then combining cargoes in one container, shipping it off. Then how do you ensure universal barcoding and reading content of containers? But the other thing, maybe for this working group, I'm not sure about other organizations, but we are spending a lot of time trying to assess, for example, custom clearance depot facilities, ensuring that their temperature controlled environment for ambient and cold chain storage equipment, storage of those equipments are up to standards, so we don't risk temperature excursions. Now, I'm not sure if all organizations are doing that by themselves. Would it be, is there information, or is it maybe a good idea, or maybe it's already happening, that there is, you know, a group or maybe information about custom clearance facilities, but the standards, what they, how good they are. I mean, is there any more information available for other organizations to see what are the custom clearance procedures or the custom clearance facilities in, for example, Afghanistan or in Mali or in Niger, as opposed to all organizations try to find out for themselves. Also, custom clearance regulations and document requirements is also something that it seems like each individual organization is learning for themselves. What are the document requirements? What are the regulations? Would it be, is it possible, or maybe does it already exist, that this information is collected by some global platform or organization that is then made available for all actors in this field, the humanitarian field? Is that something that maybe exists, or is something that we could is possible to set up?
Thanks, Johnny. Yeah, there is some feedback in the chat box as well, and obviously you know, all of this is part of the impact group. So given the time, we can't go through answer every point, but there is a chat here. And what Virginia and I will do with the rest of the team is we'll go through all the chats and make sure we get back to everybody and make sure there's a response for everything. So yes, we realize that, yes, cold chain is a particular block. There's another message here from Eloise. I think we should also look at indirect restrictions or measures de facto equivalent, that they make don't block completely and still make the importation medicines very difficult. Role of local regulatory authorities, bottlenecks created by sampling, testing procedures, and lack of capacity. Yeah, they're all really good points. And I think we'll take all of these points and look at the current piece of work that the Impact's looking at and make sure that these are not missed in our work going forward. I am conscious of time, so I don't want to keep anybody any longer. Unless somebody's got any burning comments they want to raise, I promise we'll get back to everybody.
If I may,
Sorry,
just a final comment about the compilation of procedures. This is the work we are doing with the logistic cluster and other partners. You were talking about Afghanistan, but we did it in other countries. There was a project with the WCO in West Africa, and we have compiled SOPs for Nigeria, for Mali, for Guinea, Sierra Leone, etc. And we did it as well in other countries in the world. So this is something that we are working on in the Impact Working Group, thanks to the contribution of your organization in the field. So we do address this aspect of the work as well, to avoid that each organization tries to compile information whether we have whether we are doing it in it already and share it on the website of the Impact Working Group. Over.
Thanks, Virginie. And there's another point there from Paul about supporting these countries to develop themselves, how we developed and have adopted regulatory aspects that we will also have for importing, for instance, medicines into EU. Also not easy. Yeah, and you know, as we also know, with reporting moving medicines in the EU, that also links into GDP and the license requirements around the you know, the EU legislation. So we will look at that, make sure all of these points are covered, and make sure that we don't miss any gaps. And as I say, please get in touch if you're really interested in being part of this group. We would welcome you letting us know. Virginia, is there any last words you'd like to say as the host for this?
No, so thank you very much to all the panelists and the speakers. I think it was a very interesting session to reactivate this sub-working group on importation of medicines and medical equipment. As I said, please contact us if you want to be part of this group. We will reconvene a meeting rather soon to decide what aspect of the work we should focus on in 2021 to make a difference. So thank you very much, and we'll be in touch. I'll put in the chat the link to the website of the Impact Working Group so that you can visit it as well. And you also have the
I have already, yeah, I copied before I copied the link as
okay,
well.
thank
So
you.
yeah,
Sorry.
it's in there.
Sorry.
But thanks for Judy. Yeah,
okay.
That's all right.
Okay, so thank you very much. The session is recorded anyway, so we will publish it on the website by the end of the week. And of course, if you have questions or comments, please come back to us, and we'll be happy to continue the discussion, which is a very important point, not only for COVID but for disease outbreaks. And we have not found all the solutions yet, but we are working on it all together. This is why the Impact Working Group is importation and customs clearance together. So it's not only customs, it's not only humanitarian actors, it's Ministry of Health, etc., etc. So let's continue the discussion and we try to find solutions. Thank you very much to all the panelists. Thank you, Sue, for facilitating the session. And our next session, if you are interested, is on high-level policy recommendations. You were talking about the last miles, and this HS code is the last part of the chain. But all this comes from high-level policy recommendations that we work with different partners. So the next session this afternoon is about this. So if you are interested, please join as well the session. Thank you very much to all, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Virginie. Take care. Bye, all.
Thank you, Virginie. Thanks to all. Bye.